Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. The Salafi Ijma. So the Salafi Ijma, it really can be looked at in different ways. But ultimately what it might come down to is if there's Sheikhs Ibn Uthaymeen, Ibn Baz, and Albani, for example, agree on a matter. You might be able to add a fourth or maybe even a fifth, but those are probably the three that have influenced people today. If they agree on a matter, then this is done. If it goes against the Salaf in the Quran and the Sunnah, the way of the three schools of Aqeedah, the four schools of Fiqh and Tasawwuf, it doesn't matter, right? That's Islam for some people, right? So they have this Salafi Ijma, and of course they'll fight against the Sunni interpretation of Ijma. For example, when you say this is the majority opinion, the overwhelming majority, and Ijma'at have been claimed on this, the four schools agreed on this, the three schools of Aqeedah agreed on this, they would ignore that, right? And obviously it would go down to, for example, what Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said, which is pretty much Islam for them as well, because he by himself is the representation of the Salaf in the Quran and Sunnah, and ignore all the other scholars, right? And Ibn Abdul Wahhab probably is going to take precedence if he disagrees with Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah somehow. But again, it's so irregular, so inconsistent, right? I mean, you're following, let's just say ultimately 5 or 6 people, right? And then you want to make it seem like, oh, the whole Salaf were on this, right? On tajseem and their ways of thinking, their methodology. So, no, we have the true way of Ijma', the true understanding of Ijma', right? Where we have the three schools of Aqeedah, right? If they agree on something, then it's done, like Tafweed. The three schools of Aqeedah agree on Tafweed, then it's a done deal, right? That at least Tafweed. Of course, the other two schools will allow Ta'weed, but that's a whole other issue. At least the three schools, right, following the majority of the Salaf, that tafweed is the way to interpret the mutashabihat in the Quran, right? In the four schools of fiqh, if they agree in their mu'tamad opinions on something, right, that's at least ijma', or like some type of form of ijma', but that's not good enough, right? Because that agreement could actually be ijma'at claimed throughout the centuries, right? Because if there's only 4 schools and no fifth option, and that pretty much for our purposes is ijma', because especially you're supposed to be following your school anyway. The only reason we mention, okay, the 4 schools agreed, because it becomes some type of Sunni discussion, right? With the people that follow, a handful of people and go against the overwhelming majority, and or ijma'at. Like Imam Ibn Taymiyyah went against ijma' dozens of times. Like their sheikhs, Albani and others, went against Ijma', and it's okay, right? But no, Islam has become the agreement of their sheikhs, Ibn Baz, Ibn Uthaymeen, and Albani, right? If they agree, then that is Islam, right? It's obviously awkward if Ibn Baz and Ibn Uthaymeen, they disagree, then it's a little awkward, right? Or Albani with Ibn Uthaymeen and Ibn Baz, for example, all three, maybe some have some type of disagreement, then it's awkward for them, right? Then it's a valid khilaf, mashallah, right? So this is not the way the Sunni scholars do things, right? Their way is different, right? Alhamdulillah, we have our methodology with regards to usul al-fiqh and aqeedah and tasawwuf and ilm al-hadith and all the ulum, because they go through our scholars, the Sunni scholars, right? But when you try to bypass them, do away with them because they were innovators or kuffar, right, then you have a big problem, and we see the problems that we're in today because of this way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.